You stand on the shore of a fjord, waves crashing against weathered timber posts that have jutted from the water for centuries, their surfaces blackened and textured by storms, yet unbroken, unbowed, unyielding. Imagine touching the wood, expecting rot or splintering, only to find strength that rivals metal. How could the Vikings, in an age before steel infrastructure, build timber structures that outlasted iron, surviving floods, ice, and relentless northern winters? You can almost hear the creak of ancient ships, the hammering of longhouse beams, and the whispered advice of master craftsmen guiding novices on a secret long forgotten. It wasn't luck or brute strength or some mystical blessing. It was method, observation, and a knowledge of timber that transformed ordinary trees into enduring architecture. And yet this knowledge nearly vanished, overshadowed by iron, industrialization, and modern construction. The mystery is simple but profound. What did the Vikings know about wood that made it stronger, longer-lasting, and more resilient than the very metals that would one day replace it? To uncover this secret, you have to step into their world, where survival depended not on force alone, but on clever manipulation of natural materials, turning timber into a weapon against decay, storms, and the passage of time itself. The stakes for Viking builders were immense. You weren't just constructing for convenience or beauty, you were ensuring the safety, survival, and mobility of an entire community. Ships had to withstand freezing seas and rotting salt water. Longhouses had to shelter families and livestock through blizzards and icy winds. Bridges and docks had to carry both weight and weather across rivers and fjords. A single misjudgment in timber selection, treatment or placement could lead to catastrophic failure. Sinking a ship, collapsing a roof, or destroying trade routes. Builders learned from trial and error, studying how different woods reacted to moisture, temperature, and time. They observed growth patterns, knots, and natural oils, discovering which species could endure submersion, frost, and pressure. Every cut, every joint, every post mattered. You can almost feel the tension of working with living materials, knowing that the survival of your people depended on subtle mastery of density, flexibility, and resilience. This intimate relationship with wood created knowledge that was practical, precise, and adaptive. A body of wisdom that allowed Vikings to build structures that, in many cases, still stand today, silently defying centuries of weather, wear, and human. Here's the system, step by step. Imagine a Viking shipyard, with oak and pine logs carefully felled, inspected, and prepared. First, the timber was seasoned slowly, left to dry naturally over months or years, allowing internal moisture to balance and fibres to harden. Here's the clever part. Some timbers were soaked in brine or buried in clay or alkaline soils to alter their chemical composition, making them resistant to rot and insects. Beams were cut and shaped with an understanding of grain, knots, and growth patterns, ensuring maximum strength under stress. Joints were designed to distribute weight evenly, often without metal fasteners, relying on interlocking techniques that allowed movement without cracking. For waterborne structures, submerged posts were treated with natural oils, tar, or resin to repel water, sometimes wrapped in layers of bark or textiles for extra protection. This is where it changes. Rather than forcing the wood to behave unnaturally, the Vikings enhanced its inherent properties using environmental cues, organic coatings, and clever geometry to transform ordinary timber into a material that could outlast iron. Every step reinforced the next, creating a holistic system where selection, treatment, and design work together seamlessly. Why did it work so well? Because it combined biology, physics, and chemistry intuitively. Hardwoods like oak offered natural density and resistance, while treatments like tar, resin, or clay created a breathable barrier that repelled water and pests. Slow drying minimized warping and cracking, while careful joint design allowed the wood to flex under load and temperature changes. Submerged timbers gained additional chemical protection from minerals in water or soil, while above-ground beams were insulated with bark, moss, or textiles. The clever logic lies in synergy. Wood was treated not as a static object, but as a living material, responsive to environmental stresses. By aligning human craft with the natural properties of timber, Vikings created structures that absorbed, stored, and redistributed forces that would destroy less carefully prepared wood or even iron over time. Modern analysis of surviving posts, beams, and hulls reveals that this approach not only preserved strength, but often outperformed early iron, which corroded rapidly in wet, salty, or freezing conditions. The brilliance is subtle. Observation, adaptation, and respect for the material allowed them to achieve what seemed impossible, leaving behind timber that has quietly resisted decay for over a millennium. So, why did this knowledge fade? Iron and steel eventually became easier, faster, and more standardized than timber methods. Industrialization promised uniformity, mass production, and structural predictability, making centuries of observational knowledge seem slow, laborious, and obsolete. Traditional seasoning, chemical treatments, and joint techniques were rarely recorded in detail, relying instead on apprenticeship, oral transmission, and hands-on experience. As metal became dominant, woodcraft was dismissed as primitive or artisanal, even though many iron structures failed far sooner than the timber that preceded them. Over time, the precise manipulation of wood, its preparation and its placement was replaced by nails, bolts, and chemical treatments, leaving the old methods to survive only in folklore, archaeological remnants, or the rare historian's reconstruction. The irony is that speed and convenience often sacrificed durability. The secret never truly failed. It was simply overshadowed, hidden behind a cultural and technological shift that favored efficiency over mastery, mass production over subtle, patient observation, and synthetic certainty over environmental harmony. This matters to you today, because the principles behind Viking timber mastery still hold lessons for durability, sustainability, and resilient design. This matters to you today, because the principles behind Viking timber mastery still hold lessons for durability, sustainability, and resilient design. Slow drying, natural coatings, thoughtful joint design, and an intimate understanding of material behavior can create structures that last centuries without heavy reliance on chemicals or energy-intensive treatments. Slow drying, natural coatings, thoughtful joint design, and an intimate understanding of material behavior can create structures that last centuries without heavy reliance on chemicals or energy-intensive treatments. Slow drying, natural coatings, thoughtful joint design, and an intimate understanding of material behavior can create structures that last centuries without heavy reliance on chemicals or energy-intensive treatments. Slow drying, natural coatings, thoughtful joint design, and an intimate understanding of material behavior can create structures that last centuries without heavy reliance on chemicals or energy-intensive treatments. For builders, architects, preppers, and anyone working with wood, these insights demonstrate the power of observation, patience, and design intelligence. For builders, architects, preppers, and anyone working with wood. These insights demonstrate the power of observation, patience, and design intelligence. Timber can still outperform metal in certain conditions if treated with knowledge rather than force. Timber can still outperform metal in certain conditions if treated with knowledge rather than force. The Vikings teach us that material longevity is not just about strength. It's about harmony with nature, subtle preparation, and intelligent design. The Vikings teach us that material longevity is not just about strength. It's about harmony with nature, subtle preparation, and intelligent design. By studying and adapting these methods, you can build smarter, longer-lasting structures, reduce environmental impact, and reconnect with an ancient wisdom that survived centuries of storms, warfare, and time itself. By studying and adapting these methods, you can build smarter, longer-lasting structures, reduce environmental impact, and reconnect with an ancient wisdom that survived centuries of storms, warfare, and time itself. If this story changes how you think about wood, construction, or resilience, consider experimenting, observing, and applying these secrets to your own projects. Timber that outlasts iron isn't just history, it's a guide for the future. If this story changes how you think about wood, construction, or resilience, consider experimenting, observing, and applying these secrets to your own projects. Timber that outlasts iron isn't just history, it's a guide for the future.